Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today we're reading from chapter 2, text 56 of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. And we are reading chapter 2, text 56. And it says, Dukesh Vanus Dvigna Mana Sukesu Vigata Vitaraga Bayakruda Stitadir Munir Uchyate. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The word muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every muni has a different angle of vision. Muni, and unless a muni differs from other munis, he cannot be called a muni in the strict sense of the term. Na chasav rishir yashya matam na binam Mahabharata Vanaparva 313, 117. But a stita dir muni, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary muni. The stita dir muni is always in Krishna consciousness, where he has exhausted all of his business of creative speculation. He is called Prashantani Shesha Mano Ratantara, Stotra Ratna 43, or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculation and has come to the conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna, or Vasudeva, is everything. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. He is called a muni fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds. He sees that his miseries, by grace of the Lord, are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he renders better. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry even when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success or no success, a Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. I think we read this yesterday.
Yesterday we did.
Huh?
Oh, we did? Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
57 we have to be.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So now we're going to go to text 57. Yasavat Ranavish Nehas Tatat Prapya Subha Subham Nabinan dati na dristi tasya pragya pratisthita. This is second chapter, verse number 57. And it says, in the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There is always some upheaval in the material world, which may be good or evil. One who is not agitated by such material upheavals, who is unaffected by good and evil, is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one is in the material world, there is always the possibility of good and evil, because this world is full of duality. But one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected by good and evil, because he is simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good absolute. Such consciousness in Krishna situates one in a perfect transcendental position called technically samadhi. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the translation again is in the second chapter, verse number 57. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Okay, so this shows the equilibrium of a devotee. A devotee does not go from one extreme to another extreme. A devotee doesn't get angry unnecessarily. The devotee has the ability to understand that even in the worst condition, Krishna will always protect him. Therefore, he's patient. That patience is due to having full confidence in Krishna's statement, Konteya pratijanihi nami bhakta pranasyati. Declare it boldly, Kunti, that my devotee will never perish. So this is a bedrock promise by Krishna. And therefore, the devotee is not afraid when there is difficulty, or not discouraged either, because he has full faith in Krishna.
What is the meaning of despising?
Which word?
Despising.
What?
Praising or despising?
Despising means you hate something.
Hating.
You hate something. You have no respect for it at all.
So neither we hate nor we praise.
Yeah. You can look up the dictionary.
Feeling contempt.
Yeah, contempt. Yeah. Have no respect at all. Okay. So, but this is true that there's always some upheaval in the material world, which may be good or evil. Notice he says good. Right? So, what's an example of a good upheaval? Winning the, huh? No, winning the, let's say you buy a ticket.
Lottery.
Or lottery, yeah, lottery ticket, and then you win, right? So that's a good upheaval.
Oh.
Or Okay, so unaffected by good and evil, it is to be understood, or he is to be understood and being fixed in Krishna consciousness. Well, this can only happen if you're following Krishna consciousness very strictly and you have full faith in Krishna. And you're not afraid because, and you're not attached also. You're not afraid and you're not attached because you know that Krishna is going to protect you. So this means that someone is a very advanced devotee when they have total faith in Krishna and they're not disturbed by, uh, you know, by failure. In fact, uh, it's a good thing sometimes to fail. You have to learn from your lessons. You have to learn from your, failures, and one should not be afraid to fail because that means that if you analyze why you failed, then you won't make those mistakes again. Okay. Uh, and here it says is uh, unaffected by good and evil. So such a person is understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. So that's the indication of an advanced devotee. They're not affected by good or evil. Um, why? Because in either cases, they continue in devotional service. They continue doing their service. They continue chanting. Uh, there are some people. Uh, well, I have seen some people. Their relative was sick. They were praying all the time, and the relative died. And they said, "Look, I prayed to Krishna, and still my mother died. So I don't believe in God anymore." So uh, that is not the right conclusion. Okay, you prayed to God, and of course, you love your mother very much, but she was destined to die. But she's not dead because she has an eternal soul. So you'll see her again. Uh, but and you can't blame Krishna uh, for the death. She was destined to die at that certain time, but her soul is eternal. So unless we believe that the soul is eternal, then we get bewildered and we say, "Well, I prayed to God and He didn't answer my prayer, and my grandmother died. Therefore, I don't believe anymore." That's completely nonsense. We have to understand that nobody's going to live forever in a material body. And therefore, we shouldn't be surprised that people die. We should rather pray for their benefit by uh, doing the Shrud ceremony. And actually, I always recommend people, let's say the a husband dies, or a child dies, or a relative dies. If they really love that person, then every day they'll cook food and they'll offer it to Krishna. Then they'll offer it to the person that died, and then they'll partake of the prasad. So now they're doing what they would have done if the person was alive. The person that they love, uh, and they were living with that person. Let's say it was a father, a mother, or a child, and they were cooking every day for the child. So, or the father. So there's no reason to stop cooking and stop offering first to Krishna and then to the parents. or the person that died. And you can do that every day. So, and that's good because by offering to our people that have passed prasadam, it's very beneficial for them because you don't know in what situation they're in. So by offering them prasadam every day, it will help them to get out of that difficult situation. Sometimes people die in accidents they didn't expect to die, and they end up, you know, uh, not thinking of Krishna at the moment of death. They end up, maybe in hell. But you can help them by offering them prasadam. And so even though the person is dead, you can communicate with that person through the Shraddha ceremony. That's what the Shraddha ceremony is all about. Communion with the person. Okay, so here Prabhupada says there's always some upheaval in the material world. Well, that's true. Which may be good or evil. So there are good upheavals and there are evil upheavals. Upheaval means something that is overwhelming. So it can be overwhelmingly good or it can be overwhelmingly bad. The one who's not agitated by such material upheaval, who is unaffected by good and evil, is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. So now we have a criterion to recognize who's actually a bona fide and advanced devotee. They're not affected by good or evil, and they're fixed in their Krishna consciousness. As long as one is in the material world, there's always the possibility of good and evil because this world is full of duality. But one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected by good and evil. By the way, can you look up Srimad Bhagavatam 1.8.9? Can you look that up? Srimad Bhagavatam 1.8.9. Let's see what that says. So, but one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected by good and evil because he is simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good, absolute. Such consciousness in Krishna situates one in a perfect transcendental position called technically samadhi. Samadhi means you're always remembering Krishna. You're always thinking about Krishna. Did you find that verse?
Mm-hmm.
189 from Srimad Bhagavatam. What's it say?
O Lord of Lords, Lord of the universe, you are the greatest of mystics. Please protect me, for there is no one else who can save me from the clutches of death in this world of duality.
Report.
Report by Srila Prabhupada. Divine Grace, Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Teaching. This material world is the world of duality, in contrast with the oneness of the absolute realm. The world of duality is composed of matter and spirit, whereas the absolute world is complete spirit, without any tinge of the material qualities. In the dual world, everyone is falsely trying to become the master of the world, whereas in the absolute world, the Lord is the absolute Lord, and all others are his absolute servitors. In the world of duality, everyone is envious of all others, and death is inevitable due to the dual existence of matter and spirit. The Lord is the only shelter of fearlessness for the surrendered soul. One cannot save himself from the cruel hands of death in the material world without having surrendered oneself at the lotus feet of the Lord.
Now that's a very good report.
The Lord is the only shelter of fearlessness for the surrendered soul. One cannot save himself from the cruel hands of death in the material world without having surrendered himself at the lotus feet of the Lord.
There you are. That's a great verse. Purport. Very, very important. So we see that we have a body that's made of matter, and we have a soul. So right there's a duality. Right? So if we only deal with the body and ignore the soul, we're in Maya. And therefore we suffer unnecessarily. But if we understand that I am not this body, but who am I? I'm the eternal soul. And I'm the eternal soul who is the eternal servant of Krishna. And if you act in that consciousness that you're the eternal, you have an eternal soul, and your soul is part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore your real duty in life is to serve Krishna. In other words, Krishna is not well, what we would say, I know. In other words, Krishna is the closest person to us, and we are part and parcel of Krishna. That means we've come from Krishna, although we have our individuality, but our whole existence, we came from Krishna, and for everything we do, we depend on Krishna, and we cannot do anything without Krishna's help. We cannot engage in pure Krishna consciousness without Krishna's help, and we can't engage in sense gratification without Krishna's help. Okay? That's why it says, man proposes, God disposes. So if we want to engage in sense gratification, Krishna has to help us. If we want to engage in Krishna consciousness, Krishna has to help us. So, therefore, we should develop the consciousness of a well-wisher, just like Prabhupada would sign his letters, your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So being a well-wisher, it's an art. That means you have to have a pure heart to always being well-wisher for everyone. And then by well-wishing all the time, you will you'll see that Krishna is protecting you, and people like you also, right? Because they see you're a well-wisher. You're never negative. You're always positive, and you're always, let's say, a person who is helping others because you're a well-wisher. Just like, let's say there's a blind man who's trying to cross the street. So a well-wisher will help that man. Well, first of all, ask the man, do you need a little bit of help to cross the street? And he says, yes, please, thank you. And then you help them across the street. So that means, and then the man really thanks you. And he says, you're a well-wisher. Thank you very much. So we need to develop the culture of well-wishing. By that culture of well-wishing, positive things happen. And that's why it says here, but one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected by good and evil because he is simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good, absolute. And that's a great statement. We're only we're only concerned with Krishna, who is all good, absolute. So therefore, we're not affected by good and evil. Good and evil is still a duality. But when you're concerned with Krishna, who's all good, there's no more duality. That means that you're only going to do things that for Krishna. You're not going to do anything else. So, eating, sleeping, everything you do it for Krishna. Now, does that mean you are aloof from all people? No, no. It means simply that whatever you do, well, let's put it like this. Before you act, you have to think, is this something that I'm thinking of doing? Is this something related to Krishna? And is it going to be considered as bona fide devotional service? And if you can't say no, I mean, if you say no, then you shouldn't do it. So you have to ask yourself a question. Is this something that Srila Prabhupada would accept? Is this something that Krishna would accept? You know. So you have to, and if you can't figure that out, then you have to ask an advanced devotee. So we should not do anything that we're not sure that Krishna would accept. We should only do bona fide things. So what are bona fide? Well, chanting our rounds and waking up early and going on Sankirtan. All things that are related to Krishna. So here it says, there is always some upheaval in the material world, which may be good or evil. One who is not agitated by such material upheaval, who is unaffected by good and evil, is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. Very true statement and very profound statement by Srila Prabhupada. Now we have a criterion to understand who's a real devotee, who's, let's say, so-so devotee, and who's not a devotee. One who is not agitated by such material upheavals, who is unaffected by good and evil, is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so there are always going to be good and evil. Like right now, when you hear what's happening in Palestine, oh, it's horrible. It's like it is definitely a genocide going on. It's really evil. Could you live there and be unaffected by the evil? Well, let's put it like this: it's not ending. It just keeps going on and on and on and on. It's been going on for over 70 years. The Palestinians. Now we should ask a question: why is this happening to them? Very good question. Because they don't have bona fide gurus. They have, teachers, but the whole idea, I am Palestinian and Palestine is my land. Right there is the problem. All bodily identification. Right? And Israelis, they say, from the mountains to the ocean, it's all for Israel. In other words, they're going to kick out all the Palestinians from what they call Israel. So we see that all this bodily identification leads to suffering. And it's not something that's becoming a devotee. A devotee should not have bodily identification.
Maharaj, a devotee, can he identify as I'm an Indian, I'm an Armenian? Is that?
But are you Indian?
It is enough.
You are a soul.
No, no. Like they say, oh, you're Andhra, you're Telangana.
What? Telangana.
Even I hear that in devotees.
Oh, one day when I was, where was I? I was out of town and doing preaching in, where was I?
Okay.
South, yeah, Portland. And right before I was leaving, there was an argument going, you know, between a devotee that was Telangana and another devotee that was,
Andhra.
Andhra, yeah. They were arguing. and as I was leaving, uh, one was shouting out Andhra and the other one was shouting out Telangana, they're fighting. And, it's like shocking because they're bodily identifying and they're ready to fight each other. They were on the verge of punching each other. This is complete ignorance. So this bodily identification is the reason why we suffer in the material world, and it's the reason why we'll stay in the material world. So if you don't want to stay in the material world, the first thing you have to do is to understand not to identify with the body. If you identify with the body, every decision you make will be wrong. If you identify with the soul and act on the level of the soul as a genuine servant of Krishna, you won't make any mistakes. But if you identify with the body, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes in life, no doubt about it. All right, so here it says, but one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected by good and evil because he is simply concerned with Krishna. So that's what we should be, simply concerned with Krishna. And there's a very nice bhajan, Krishna, 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 hey. 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 So that's what we should be thinking all the time. All the time we should be thinking about Krishna. Oh, also Rama Raga, Rama Raga, Rama Raga. Rakshama. So you can also ask Rama for protection. So in this way, we'll be fixed in Krishna consciousness and not affected by good and evil because we're only concerned with Krishna. Such a person is technically considered in samadhi. Now, the meaning of samadhi, look it up. The meaning of samadhi means your mind is completely focused on Krishna. It's not interested in anything else. You can still function in society. You can still go to work. You can still have a family. But you are in the transcendental situation or consciousness of samadhi.
A state of intense concentration achieved through meditation.
All right, well, that's not a perfect definition of samadhi.
My own.
Because
In Hindu yoga, this is regarded as the final stage at which union with the divine is reached before or at death.
okay, well, that, sort of is a little bit better, but it doesn't mention Krishna.
A state of deep concentration resulting in union or absorption into the ultimate reality.
That's a Mayavadi statement. It has to mention Krishna because that's the ultimate, as it says here,
Yeah.
the ultimate reality. Yeah. Okay, so in the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Yeah, there's always going to be some kind of upheavals that may be devastating. And on the other hand, other upheavals that may be really good. In both ways, we should not be affected by it. And what does that mean? That means that we should continue our devotions. We shouldn't be discouraged in any way. We shouldn't be intimidated by anything. And good or evil, we should continue devotional service. That means you're in samadhi. That's why it says, but one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected by good and evil because he or she is simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good, absolute. That's a very profound statement. Nothing about Krishna is bad. Everything about Krishna is good. So now we're outside of duality because duality means good and evil. But if you're associating always with Krishna, there's no evil involved. So there's no duality. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we go. What time? Is time over?
Yeah.
Okay. So are there any questions anyone would like to ask? Yeah, so this Srimad Bhagavatam 1.8.9 is very good, very good verse. You want to read it again? Yeah, I want to hear that one more time.
I can read.
If you have it, please read it.
Uttara said, O Lord of the Lords, Lord of the universe, you are the greatest of mystics. Please protect me, for there is no one else who can save me from the clutches of death in this world of duality.
Wow.
Pahi pahi Mahamogam, Deva Deva Jagatpate, Nanyam Svad Abhayam Pashe, Yatra Mrityu Parasparam.
Can you read the purport?
Purport by His Divine Grace, His Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada. This material world is the world of duality, in contrast with the oneness of the absolute realm. The world of duality is composed of matter and spirit, whereas the absolute world is complete spirit without any tinge of material qualities. In the dual world, everyone is falsely trying to become the master of the world. Whereas in the absolute world, the Lord is the absolute Lord, and all others are his absolute servitor. In the world of duality, everyone is envious of all others, and death is inevitable due to the dual existence of matter and spirit.
Wow.
The Lord is the only shelter of fearlessness for the surrendered soul. One cannot save himself from the cruel hands of the death in the material world without having surrendered himself at the lotus feet of the Lord.
Can you read the last two sentences?
The Lord is the only shelter of fearlessness for the surrendered soul. One
Very important. Fearlessness. So many people are subjected, or let's say, overwhelmed with fearlessness. No, fearfulness. Why? Because why does someone have fear? Because they're not sure about what's going to happen in the future. And they don't have let's say, a happy mind. They're fearful. The economy is not good. The Republicans might win. I mean, what's his name? Trump might win the election. And some people say, well, Trump is elected, I'm leaving the United States. But they never do. They always say that, but they never leave. So when people have doubts about the future, they get worried, and they are fearful. They don't know what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen. We're going to continue chanting Hare Krishna and following the regulative principles. Therefore, we're not fearful because we know that Krishna promises to protect his devotee. And I've told you this before, but I'll just repeat it again. In World War II, the Japanese were bombing Calcutta. And at the same time, the Japanese, and at the same time, the Indian, let's say, army, the generals, they made an artificial impounding of rice. They did it on purpose. Why? Because they didn't want any young Indians joining the what was his name? I forget it. Joining his army.
Yeah.
They were afraid. So by creating a let's say
scarcity, right?
Scarcity, they have to stay and take care of their families, right? So it was a I mean it was a artificial famine, and Indians were dying. So at that time, Prabhupada did a survey. He went around and spoke with all different Vaishnavas that he knew in Calcutta, because there were people actually dying in the street, right, of hunger, right? So he goes around, and everyone that he went to see said, well, it's by Krishna's mercy, somehow or other, we're existing. Because why? Because Krishna guarantees to protect his devotees. So Prabhupada was testing it to see if that actually a fact, you know. And everybody he went to see, you know, all the Vaishnavas that he saw, they all said somehow or other by Krishna's mercy we're existing. On the other hand, there were people dying in the street. Yeah. So we should have faith in Krishna's promise that he'll protect his devotee. Then we should not be afraid of anything. We should not be afraid of the future. You know, there's so many people that are afraid. Oh, we don't know what's going to happen, and all the you know, speculators. You know, they're always betting that the stock market is going to go up, or they're betting that the stock market is going to go down. Right. So this up down, up down, up down completely destroys the consciousness of a person. Therefore, we shouldn't. I mean, that's gambling, so we shouldn't be involved in the stock market. Of course, if you buy a stock and keep it for 10 years or 20 years, that's okay. But this up-down game with stocks should not happen because it completely destroys the spiritual consciousness of people. Okay, so I think
So,
it's done. Yeah.
Maharaj, like
Go ahead.
the death itself, there is an eventual death, even for a pure devotee of the material body.
Mhm.
So, when we say the Lord is protecting us from the death,
Who said
He's
that?
our-
Wait a minute. Who said that?
here Uttara is saying, please protect me, for there is no one else who can save me from the clutches of the death in this world of duality.
So that's because
Yeah, so my question
Well, that's
is
because
that
there was a bomb. There was a
atomic,
atomic bomb.
it's over.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's something like the Lord protects those from those unintended, like there is a natural death and there is the artificially.
Well, what did Krishna do? I mean, to protect her, he actually entered into her womb and protected her.
Yeah.
It was like a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he,
But
Yeah.
eventually Uttara also died.
everybody's going to die
Correct,
eventually.
correct. So I mean, how do we understand that?
But she didn't die at that point.
Because an enemy is coming and trying to kill her.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that means like Krishna protects from any premature.
Yeah, we're all going to
situation.
die, but
Yeah.
that was a terrible situation. And she had a baby also.
Right.
She had, I mean, it was still in her womb. The Krishna protected. And what was the name of the baby?
Parikshit.
Parikshit. What does Parikshit mean? He saw Krishna when he was in the womb.
Yeah.
So Parikshit means one who's always examining.
Yeah.
He was trying to
Correct.
see Krishna again.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, so we should have full faith that Krishna is going to protect us. Then we don't get afraid. The stock market could go up, it can go down. It might be, you know, the risk that there might be an atomic attack in the United States, this, that, next thing. We should always have complete faith that Krishna will protect us.
Whatever may be the actual outcome, it will be the best outcome possible for the devotee.
The best outcome, awesome.
Right? Because Krishna will make sure that it is the best outcome,
That thing that happens.
best thing that can happen for the devotee. I mean, it's not like always like, oh, always he protects from the death. I mean, there are times when, you know, if Krishna likes that, okay, this person is better serving in Goloka, he can take the death, he can give the death. Isn't it, Maharaj?
Well, I'm talking about people who are afraid because there might be a war, because there might be an economic downturn, so they get afraid. And when they get afraid, they can't think straight. That's because they don't have faith in Krishna. Just like, what was it, Raja Ram, right?
Yeah.
He loses everything. And because he doesn't have any relationship with Krishna, he kills himself and kills his family first and kills himself. Saying,
We're saying then those people, even at that moment, if they take shelter of the Lord will protect. Even though
yes.
they're not pure like devotees per se before. But at that
But
time,
Krishna's promising, he says, my devotee will never perish.
Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're all going to die eventually, but even that, we don't really die because we have an eternal soul. Yeah. Yeah.
Krishna himself had to leave the planet.
He didn't die, though.
He has to leave the pastimes, right?
Yeah. Well, even that is the pastimes are going on somewhere else with Krishna, right? So it might not be on the earth anymore. I mean,
On
yeah.
this
Yeah. Yeah. So he never really dies. I mean, he can't die. He's immortal.
Yeah, he's a supreme person.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll stop right there. Thank you very much. Don't be afraid of anything.
Very
The only thing you should be afraid of is falling down out of Krishna consciousness. That you should be afraid of.
Very well. Sure.
Haribol. Jai.
Hey, Krishna. Any other questions? If not,
That will be 11 hours from now.
yeah.